Yo, what is up YouTube? My name is Russ and today I'm bringing you a video guide on how to correctly use the Winds of Winter Shards of Domination set bonus. That's the Frost Shard set bonus inside the Sanctum of Domination. Obviously, this also applies to things like Torghast and open world stuff like in Namor and Korthia and whatnot. But I'm mainly going to be focusing on how you can take advantage of this inside the raid to not only buff your overall damage on boss fights and things like that, and obviously trash, but also how you can take advantage of these small windows of opportunity to put things like higher boss damage where needed, like emphasis onto popping your shard, like a big crit pop onto the boss, or an add like priority target damage, things like that. So ways that you can kind of play around the buff to, in my opinion, stand out as a player. And I think that some of these tips I'm going to tell you, a lot of people would overlook or not really think about. So hopefully it will give you some insight. Firstly, I'm going to educate you exactly how the set bonus in this buff works. And then we're going to use that knowledge to apply it to real-time like situations. And I'm going to take you through a few examples as well. I'm going to be doing this on my Demon Hunter, which I think is one of the classes where you can take a little bit more advantage of this buff. To pop it in certain ways, because we're going to be Night Fae, which means that we can combo this with Khorane, which is one of the Night Fae soulbinds. So I'm going to be teaching you kind of how to take advantage just specifically as a Demon Hunter, but this will be applicable to all classes that are using this Frost set bonus. I know rogues use it a little bit and things like that. So I'll take you through how this works, and then we'll jump into how to use it. So how exactly does this Winds of Winter buff work? I'll read you the tooltip. Winds of Winter, while inside the Maw or Torghast or the raid Sanctum of Domination, that's what we really care about. Each time you deal a critical strike, the winds accumulate a small percentage of that effect, up to a cap of this number. Let's say rank 5 is 540, right? So these are scaling with the level of your gem set, right? Side note here, if you are leveling up your gems, make sure that you level them up all evenly. Hopefully you guys know this, but if in case you don't, if you have like 2 gems at rank 5 and 1 at rank 2, your set bonus is only rank 2, right? And the set bonus is the very, very strong component of this. So make sure you're leveling up your gems evenly, like all to rank 2, all to rank 3, all to rank 4, all to rank 5. That's going to give this buff the biggest potency, right? So it stacks up to a cap, a small percentage of each critical strike. Every 20 seconds, the winds unleash, dealing frost damage equal to the total accumulation of that damage and surrounding you in the winds for 20 seconds, absorbing 100% of the damage dealt. So that's like a nice little shield. That's great. It's an added bonus, but we really care about the damage, right? And obviously, the more damage we do, the bigger shields that we get, so we can help out our healers. Now, it says here at max rank on rank 5, it's 18% of the crits. But in the game, it says 26 on my rank 5, so I guess they kind of buffed this a little bit to make it easier to stack up. So if we reverse engineer this, 26%, that being 540 of the cap, let's just times that by 4, for example, and we need to crit at least 2,160, right? 2,160 crit is going to give us the maximum value into our Winds of Winter. Now let's imagine that this Winds of Winter buff that is ticking every 20 seconds is like a jar, right? What we want to do is we want to crit loads and loads of times, loads of small instances of crits, so that we can put all those small instances of crits, that being the stored damage, and store it in our jar, right? And every 20 seconds, we're just going to close the jar and we're just going to throw it at the boss, okay? Like we're just going to lob it right in their face and it's just going to blow up and do loads of damage, right? And if that crits, that's even better, right? That's doing twice as much. Now about the explosion of it, that being us throwing the jar, right? It seems to go on, for the most part, your main target. So if you want to like target switch or something to get some priority damage, it will most likely go on your main target. But I did run around and mess about with this in Torghast for a little bit, and I worked out, from what I can gather, it goes on your most recently damaged target. So sometimes when I was throwing my glaive and targeting my main target, the shard would then fire at the second target the glaive hit, right? Because it ricochets. For the most part, it will always go on the boss. When I've been using it in raids, it's always gone on my main target. But if you're unsure and you've like just made a target switch at the last second, I would maybe throw a glaive just to be safe, or you can test it out for yourself and see where your shard is firing, right? It fires this kind of projectile of a big ice shard, kind of like a mini glacial spike if you've ever played Frostmage. So what we want to do to be really stacking this up is that we want to be having loads and loads of small instances of crits, right? Because it doesn't matter if we hit like 8,000 or 2,000. The maximum that can be stored from that individual instance of damage or that crit is for like 540 damage, right? So we want to be ideally critting every single attack. This is in an ideal world, obviously not possible. We want to crit every single attack for over 2,160 or whatever that number is I said, right? And then every single attack will be storing 540 damage into our jar, right? Obviously that's not possible, but if you see things like the classes that use this buff, those being like Demon Hunter and Assassination Rogue and things like that, they have a lot of small instances of damage, right? Demon Hunter does a lot of small instances of damage when you I-beam, when you use Glaive Tempest, when you use Blade Dance or Death Sweep or whatever. And those are the things that are really going to stack up this Winds of Winter like jar very quickly. So what can we do with this information? Well, firstly, we want to track the buff, because if we track it, we have information. And if we have information, we can make decisions. So if I take you guys in game now and open up my weak auras, you can see possibly down here at the bottom of my screen that I have this Winds of Winter looking icon down here, right? Now, this has two values on it. This top one here is a timer, which is just tracking it. Every 20 seconds it's going to restart, and this buff restarts on pull every single time. So it's important to know, I guess, you can actually know exactly throughout the fight when your Winds of Winter is going to pop, and so it doesn't change pull to pull. So if you pull Painsmith 100 times, it's going to pop at 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, 120 1 minute 20, 1 minute 40, 2 minutes, etc, right? And if you know when the mechanics are going to spawn, you can kind of play around this buff. So you can see already that we can kind of start thinking outside the box of interesting ways that we can take advantage of this window. So we want to be tracking this. So the top number is the timer, just going to keep ticking so that we know roughly when it's going to pop, so we can kind of plan ahead. And the second number is the amount of damage that's actually stored in it. So that's not the crits that you do, but the percentage that is stored and captured from those crits, that 26% I was talking about. So the bottom number, in my opinion, isn't actually that useful to know. Like, it's cool to see how much damage you're going to do, but at the end of the day, we always just are going to be trying to get that number as high as possible. So it doesn't really matter what the number actually is, because we're going to be doing all that we can to get it as high as possible every single time that this window is closing, right? So if I take you deeper into this Winds aura now, this is the one down here, and I have another one which I'll explain to you in just a second. But we can see down here, this one down here, this one I'll link down below, by the way, and it's available on Wago. I did not make this, so I'll link it down below. You can start looking at the triggers, right? Basically, as soon as the encounter starts, it's going to start this this Winds window ticking, right? And the duration is 20 seconds, and it's just going to keep restarting. It's some kind of custom trigger, but you can see it's just going to pop every 20 seconds, and then the trigger 2 is just if you have the set bonus on, right? So I had to cut the video to come to the more to just remember how I set this up, but I worked it out. So we have this one down here, as I said, which is tracking, just in general, just tracking every single 20 seconds. As long as I have this buff up here, the Winds of Winter, this one will be visible, right? Now I have this other one down here, which is doing the same thing, but it's just a smaller version, and I've added on the conditions for it to glow with like a little green pixel like outline going around it. So it's not too like in my face and stuff like that. It's just kind of like reminding me that this is a thing that's happening soon. The window is closing. Can I take advantage of it? Do I want to change which target I'm popping it on? Do I want to try and crit it, which I'll talk about in a second. So it's just having a duration below, like when the duration is above 5, the alpha is 0. So that means that it won't be seen, right? So it's not all the time on my screen. So it just pops up at sub 5 seconds. and then it's also got a glow effect, right, when it's below 5 seconds. So the reason I'm doing it at 5 seconds is that gives me firstly a nice window to kind of react. I know that if I see this popping up, I have 5 seconds to determine where I want this thing to pop, right? And the second reason, which is probably the bigger reason, is that I play with the Soulbind Korain, right? And Korain has this ability called First Strike. Damaging an enemy before they damage you increases your chance to critical strike by 25% for 5 seconds, right? So you can see the 5 seconds on this buff and the 5 seconds to pop my Winds of Winter, right? Now, usually stuff isn't going to be attacking you first inside of the raid, right? And this is not just damage to that particular target. This is your whole, crit chance on that target. This is your whole crit chance. This is all of your crit chance in general. And this applies to the Winds of Winter buff and the Winds of Winter pop. So what we can do with this is every time that I see this little weak aura here in the middle of my screen, this smaller one popping up, I know that it's now safe to look for something to proc my Korain First Strike, right? So if I get this up on my screen, and let's say, for example, I'll give you some examples, but one of them I use quite frequently is the spiked balls on Painsmith. And I don't want to really do damage to the spike balls because it doesn't go into like logs and useful damage and stuff. But I can throw my glaive at a spike ball within 5 seconds of my shard popping and then go back to targeting the boss. And I can have a 25% increased chance to crit on the boss, right? Which is really, really useful. I'll play some clips and I'll talk through some clips in a bit. So I do have another weak aura, which is just tracking First Strike, right? So I'm also tracking First Strike. So every time I see that other one, let's show this one, and then go back to Winds. If I like now both are showing, if this one pops up and then I can go and throw my glaive, I know that like if I see both of these weak auras that will be active, then I know that I've got decent chance of it critting, right? Because in my raid gear, I'm actually running like 41% crit anyway. So this means that if I'm proccing my First Strike, I have a 66% chance to crit this Winds, which is a pretty decent chance to crit. Now we can take advantage of this, as I said, like either we can just get a huge pop onto the boss, or we can maybe use it for slightly more devious tactics, like popping it onto an ad or something. Let's say, for example, on Soulrender, there's these ads that spawn, the Morsworn Agonizers, I think they're called, and if you get the brands on, you get brands on teammates, they can stand on the ads, and it increases the damage the ads take. You could actually target those particularly because they take increased damage and pop your Winds onto an ad so it could crit for like 100% more, or even just hit for 100% more, because the thing is that you have this information now that you know exactly when it's going to pop, that you can choose where you want to throw it, right? If there's something that's going to be hit 3 times as hard, then that's obviously loads of damage. And I'll be going through some clips in a bit showing like how I jump on the DPS meter when I do get one of these crazy crits, right? It makes a huge difference. A lot of people overlook this, I think, because at least when I was told about Winds and stuff like that, when I just first started playing on my Demon Hunter, people just said, just play the game and Winds of Winter basically just shits out damage every 20 seconds and you don't have to worry about it. It's completely passive. Just play the game and it will do loads of damage. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, I'm sure I could take advantage of this to like amplify it, right? And that's exactly what hopefully this guide is. Hopefully, if I'm doing a good job teaching you to kind of think about these things, if you think outside the box, you will be rewarded most of the time. While we're on the subject of thinking outside the box and First Strike and things, just a side note, I guess, if you are playing a Demon Hunter, you can also, if you're thinking about using the Hunt soon, it's a very hard-hitting ability on a 1.5 minute cooldown, you can maybe throw a glaive at an ad that's just spawned to proc the crit chance, and then potentially you can hunt directly after that, which means that you'll have a 25% increased crit chance on the hunt, right? Which is going to do a load of damage as well. And then the dot that leaves behind. But I'll maybe bring out, if you guys are interested in like a full Demon Hunter guide, I could probably make one of those before the next patch. It's looking like I might be playing it in 9.2 anyway, so if Demon Hunter content is something that you guys might be interested in, then let me know that in the comments, okay? But there's one more thing that I should tell you, and that is that like even kind of useless damage, let's use Painsmith again with the spike balls, for example, instances, as long as it's instances of damage, remember that it's going inside of your Winds of Winter. So I'll play the clip now, But I've got a clip of me essentially on Painsmith doing boss damage, right? And we go through the spike balls. I'm running Trail of Ruin in this clip, and I'm standing close to the spike balls, and I'm trying to put my bleed and my blade dance hits on as many spike balls as I can while I'm still targeting the boss. So my damage is going into the boss. I'm passively cleaving the ball that we need to kill, and I will switch to it if obviously we need to, but I don't really think I need to switch to it. So I'm using the balls to stack up and also proc my Karain into the boss while I'm doing boss damage, right? And then I can turn around and I can I-beam the balls as well, which is obviously guaranteed crits. And while that's like pad damage, and it's not going to go into the log or anything like that, because the ball damage gets reduced, it will go inside of my wins, which will then hit the boss, which does go onto the log. So you can see how it's like funnel damage in a way. So as the balls approach me, I position myself in a way that I'm still in range of the boss and I'm doing my damage to the boss, but I'm blade dancing onto the spike balls, which procs Karain, which is going to give me loads of crit chance. And then all my blade dance little like swishies are going to be hitting the spike balls, and they're going to be stacking a lot of small crits into my wins, right? Meanwhile, keeping up my Karain first strike buff, right? So I'm just going to be putting as much damage in while I like into my jar essentially, while I'm still attacking the boss. And then we're going to walk through the spike ball, and you're going to see me turn and I-beam the boss, still on the boss, but I'm I-beaming in the position where my beam extends over to the spike ball lines. Again, refreshing my Karain buff, but also stacking all those small crits of I-beam into the jar of the Winds of Winter again, right? And then just on the right hand side, as you see the balls are about to despawn and fade away, you can also see in the center of my screen that my Winds of Winter is popping pretty soon, which means because that small one has come up in the middle of my screen with the green outline effect, it means that it's safe to now get a Karain, look for a Karain first strike buff, which means that I can then crit my wins onto the boss. So I turn and I throw a glaive onto the balls, which I know that I haven't hit. That's why I chose the ones at the very end of the row, because I know that I hadn't passively cleaved any of those ones yet. So I could have a very high chance that I hadn't hit them, so that I could get the first strike buff off them, right? And then I don't ensure a crit, but I maximize my chances of having a crit, because not only I have that very high 41% base crit chance, but I also have that increased 25% from Karain, and you can see that I hit a 66k crit onto the boss, which you can see my damage on the damage meter completely jumps up, right? Now I have another clip playing where I am now on Soulrender, right? And I was talking about these ads a little bit earlier. They're just these more spawn agonizers that spawn. Using the first two ads around the boss to stack up my Winds of Winter buff. I am padding a little bit on them, I will admit, but this was just a heroic view raid I did on stream, so it didn't matter too much. I wasn't like destroying the raid integrity or anything like that. And so I used the first two ads to stack up my shard, and then I go over. I purposefully don't attack the other ads until my Winds of Winter is popping soon, right? So I use my Vengeful Retreat to get over there, and then I start to look for a pop with the first strike buff and praying for a crit with that. Again, that's 66% crit, right? And now you'll see that this agonizer has a brand on it, right? So I'm going to get this almost guaranteed crit, or a very high chance of critting, and it's got the brand on it. As I was saying, you can kind of use it to pad, right? So that means it's taking increased damage, which as you can see leads to an 88k crit, which is huge, right? 88k, and you'll see my damage just explode on the meter, right? So these are kind of like the instances that you can look to use this most of the time in a single target situation. It will be, as I said before, like just a passive effect that kind of just shits out damage every 20 seconds. But when you can start thinking around how to use these windows of opportunity to kind of take your gameplay or decision making to the next level, it starts to become quite a fun mechanic, and it's something that I can probably say I'll kind of miss going into patch 9.2 when we lose these Shards of Domination, because this is definitely the most fun one there is, and the one that, you know, kind of has the most decision making. The blood one is just damage, the shadow one is just stats, This one is like you can kind of play around it, which is fun. Like it's like an extra mechanic, it's an extra layer of depth to my class, right? It's really good. So yeah, to summarize, got a bigger, weaker at the bottom, which is always showing, which I don't look at very often, just if I want to plan ahead. And then the one that pops up in the middle of my screen is kind of like my window of opportunity, where I can look to take advantage of the buff popping. At all times, anyway, I want to be stacking it as much as I can, and just hoping it crits, right? So if I can in any way increase that crit chance, or, you know, my target can take increased damage or something, then that's going to be somewhere where I need to think about the actual buff and aim it at the specific target I want it to pop on. And at all times, try and stack it, you know, how I was using the balls on Painsmith, for example, standing close to the balls just to get extra small crits. While that is kind of useless damage, it is going into the jar, which we're going to be throwing, right? So that's always useful. Think about your positioning. It's definitely underrated. But yeah, I will link both WeakAura's my version and the standard version down in the description below. Let me know what you guys thought. Honorable mention, by the way, goes out to the Shard of Core, which I'll put the tooltip on screen for you now. That one also has a 20-second damage buff whenever you damage a new target as well for the first time. So if you're looking for these Karain procs, or even just like looking to hit new ads as they spawn, you're going to be not only getting your first strike buff, but you're also going to be getting this 3% damage for 20 seconds. That's just nice as well. That's just gonna you know, make the wins crit even higher, right? So yeah, hopefully this helped. If you'd like to see more videos like this, I play loads of different classes. I have been doing a lot of rogue content on this channel, but I play loads of classes. It's looking like I might be playing Demon Hunter in the next patch. I also play Mage. I might make some Mage videos, Demon Hunter videos, Rogue videos, all that stuff. So if you liked it, like the video. If you didn't like it, dislike the video so I know. Write in the comments down below what you think, and check out the live stream, twitch.tv/JustRuss, where I hang out most days of the week with my great community in chat, and we do loads of stuff in game together. Yeah, hopefully subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next video. As always, peace.